Hey there and welcome back. In today's video, we will talk about the best way to farm combat fame and combat fame credits as a solo player. There are different ways you can gain combat fame. It can be in the open world off of mobs in the safe or black zone. It can be from doing solo or group dungeons. And if you're in a guild, you might be doing static dungeons as a group. However, some of us might not be in a guild or play at random times of the day. So the best and fastest way for solo players is to solo tier 4 static dungeons out of blue zones. I made a video a few months ago on this build that I recommend for solo and group dungeons and static dungeons, so we'll touch on it in the video as some options might be interchangeable. However, I will be letting you know why I chose these items and how I use them. Now you might be wondering why a tier 4 blue zone static dungeon and not a tier 5 yellow static dungeon. I've tested both for some time and tier 5 static dungeons are easier than tier 4. They also provide more combat fame per mob. However, they are very packed with people and it makes it very hard to grind mobs consistently. You will end up making more combat fame and fame credits from tier 4 blue zone static since they tend to be empty, which means that you can solo them for hours on end. Now, deciding which tier 4 static dungeon to do this on will depend on which royal city you're based out of. It is important to select a static dungeon that is at least 2 zones away from your royal city, as it will provide you with a buff and increase your combat fame, silver, and loot by 5%. Now, 5% might not seem like much, but when you're talking about millions of combat fame, it really does add up for you. Now, you'll also want to make sure that you're faction flagged. You will gain faction points while killing these mobs, and you will average about 12,000 faction points per hour with this build, which is huge. You can purchase chests for silver and combat fame or purchase hearts for pure silver. This is a great way to make an additional 200,000 silver per hour from faction points alone. So let's talk about how much combat fame you'll make. Without turning on a satchel or auto respec, you will make anywhere from 2 to 3 million depending on how high your item power is. Now, before you comment that you can make anywhere from 15 to 20 million per hour, you're not wrong, but that does require turning on auto respec and your satchel. Doing this will also cost you tens of millions of silver per hour, so if you can afford to lose tens of millions of silver per hour, by all means turn both of those on. However, the average player or new player can't afford to do that. So expect anywhere from 2 to 3 million per hour. Now, on top of that, if you are maxed out on mastery, you will get combat fame credit. You earn fame credits when you earn combat PvE fame while equipped with at least one gear that is at least 100 mastery or spec. Now, you will earn more fame credits for the more valuable gear pieces, for example, two-handed weapons, main hand weapons, armor pieces, heads, and feet, and then your offhand. You will earn combat credit for both mastery and spec, so an item with 100 mastery and 100 spec will give you double the fame credits. You'll earn about 4 times more fame credit if you do turn on auto respec in your destiny board, but you'll also pay silver for it, a ratio of 1 to 1 silver per fame credit. That is why I mentioned earlier that you'll spend tens of millions of silver if you're trying to farm tens of millions of combat fame per hour. Now, I have a full 100 out of 100 mastery and spec on all of my items except my main hand, and I get about 800 to 900,000 combat credits per hour on top of the 3 million combat fame. This is without auto respec and satchel. This is important because once you max out your spec at 100 out of 120, for any item to get to 120 out of 120, you will need to spend combat fame credit. I recommend saving these as much as you can. Now, another perk about collecting combat fame credits is that you can use them on other items to max out mastery or spec even if you aren't currently using them. Now that we know which static dungeons to farm at, how much combat fame, credit, and faction points will make, let's talk about the build I recommend and the abilities. For your main hand, you will go with the Shadow Caller. This weapon does a lot of AoE damage through your Q, which is Tar. You will round up your enemies and drop Q on top of them, and quickly spread your Vile Curse charges to all targets. Tar recently got buffed with a bigger radius, which helps quite a bit to spread that Vile Curse faster. Now for your W, you will go with Cursed Beam. This ability does a huge amount of direct and AoE damage depending on the number of Vile charges on your target. When you cast your W, it will pop Vile charges on your target, causing AoE damage to all enemies around it. Since you've dropped Tar underneath your enemy, you will pop the Vile charges on your enemy as they continue to collect more, allowing you to do consistent damage. Now, as you see your health dropping, you will use your E, which will do a large amount of AoE damage to all mobs impacted by it, and since you'll be wearing leather armor, it'll also steal 100% of the health the enemy has lost. For the passive, I like to take Bane for the extra AoE damage. Now your armor piece will be Hellion Jacket. You will go with Lifesteal Aura for the lifesteal and extra damage. Keep in mind the lower health that you are, the more damage you will do, meaning the more that you will heal as well. So try and use this around 20%. You'll take Balanced Mind for the extra damage and healing. When it comes to your helmet, it'll be Spectre Hood, which is amazing for this build since you'll go with Flash of Insight, which allows you to reset your armor's R, giving you 2 major AoE heals and damage abilities. This is a 0.5 second cast with a long cooldown, so make sure not to get stunned or interrupted when trying to reset your R. You'll also go with Balanced Mind for the increased damage and healing. Now for your offhand, I recommend going with Moisak. Not only does this increase your ability's damage, it also gives you a healing cast bonus, which helps you tremendously for what you're trying to accomplish. A lot of other people like going with Crypt Candle, but this can limit your pull size since you will take a lot more damage. Now for your boots, I personally like to take Guardian boots for the increased armor and most importantly Giant. This will increase your max and current health by 100% and movement speed by 25%. The reason I go with Giant is that it works really well when trying to set up your initial damage, allowing you to hold on to your other healing defenses longer. It also works really well to buy you some time for cooldowns to come up. The cape I like to take is the Limhurst cape, and this is to offset any possible energy issues from chain pulling. For your food, you'll go with roast pork for the lifesteal, and I like to go with poison potions to pull extra packs or to focus down a larger empowered mob. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video and got some insight on how to maximize your combat fame and fame credits. You can make a lot of faction points along the way as well. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in more Albion Online content. I stream 4 days out of the week on Twitch, Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday and Thursday. However, I stream every Tuesday on YouTube, so make sure to stop by and say hello.